Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and welcome back to another Spooky Dude reaction. And I think this is the first Spooky Dude reaction I've done in a little while, and yeah, the title alone of this one is a bit questionable, or at least a little bit confusing. So this is Why Gaster is Green and in Between, or alternatively 6-7 theory, because I know that's a big meme that's been going around recently. But yeah, I mean, this video, I mean, just from the thumbnail alone, like, I honestly have I have no idea what to expect from this. Like, I do know just from, like, what I've seen on, like, Twitter and stuff recently, that there's been a lot of, like, stuff going around with, like, Gaster being, you know, related to, like, the color green, where, like, oh, Sans is blue, Papyrus is orange, Gaster is green. I have no idea where that's come from. But yeah, I have no idea what to expect from this video, but it was requested to me on my Discord server by one DMN, and I have seen at least a couple of people talking about how this is actually potentially a really good video, so I honestly don't know what to expect here. So yeah, I mean, should probably just get this thing started and see what this video is actually going to be about. So yeah, of course, as always, original video is linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video will lead to my Let's Play of the day. And if you like this video or any other video that I make, I'd very much appreciate it if you gave the video a like and subscribe to my channel, because almost 3/4 of the people that watch my channel aren't subscribed, and I'd very much like that to change, because my next big goal is hopefully hit 6,000 subscribers by the end of the year. But yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
To save the worlds, there is only one way.
Yeah. Okay.
The identity of the Eggman in Deltarune has been quite a mystery since the beginning. Even from the very first post-Chapters 3 and 4 theory video that I made, I had a hard time nailing anything down about him. Outside of the fact that he exists and is somehow tied to Chris, his link to the game as a whole is relatively unknown.
Father?
For now. As of recently, however, there was a discovery. A discovery relating to a certain number. A series of two numbers in conjunction with one another, as a matter of fact. I'm talking, of course, about 6-7. Hello everyone, my name is Spooky Dude, and unfortunately, this is Deltarune 6-7 theory.
Unfortunately.
Now before I begin, I know some of you are asking the obvious question. Didn't you say you were taking a break from Deltarune? I can't keep doing this. And to quickly answer the question, yes, I am, but in that video I said I was taking a break from being a Deltarune-focused channel. I'm still doing theory reviews, but I'm also doing all kinds of other videos. Go check out my recent theory videos on the Amazing Digital Circus and Knights of Guinevere.
Oh,
I also said that if any news were to come out, or if I felt like I had something to say, I would make another Deltarune video. And some news has come out. Discoveries have been made, and I do feel like I have something to say. Also, I shouldn't have to defend myself from someone who knowingly clicked on a video titled Deltarune 6-7 theory. No, but for real. My name is Spooky Dude. Make sure to like and subscribe. Now let's discuss. Okay, where is this video actually going? This explanation is slightly complicated, so forgive me if I get this answer wrong, and let me know in the comments and I'll pin it. But, based on my research, this is what I got. If you didn't know, all colors displayed digitally have a hex code, which is how the monitor knows what colors to display. Yeah. If you want the color red, for example, to display on the screen, the way to tell the computer to display it is by using a hex code.
Anybody that's ever used any form of, you know, image alteration, you know, software like, you know, Photoshop or GIMP or, you know, anything of the like, knows exactly what he's talking about.
A hex code contains 6 digits, each of them corresponding to a number between 0 and 15. In this way, the entire color spectrum is accounted for. This color, red, uses hex code FF0000, but here in this other image, you can see how slightly altering the hex code changes the way the red looks. There is, however, a different way to display colors as well.
RGB,
using the RGB values rather than a single hex code. Containing a pattern of 9 numbers instead of 6, the RGB values allow you to put in a number from 0 to 255 for red, blue, and green values, allowing you to, again, properly display any color on screen. Which brings us to Undertale. You see, in the Mystery Man room, the floor is gray, but what color is it specifically? By checking the RGB values, we can see that the value is 166, 166, 166. The significance here is obvious. Gaster has always been associated with the number 6, specifically multiple repetitions of the number 6.
Okay, wait, no, but what happens? No, so it couldn't go to 666. Again, because it tops out. But what would happen if you just had 66? Is that where the green comes in from? Yeah, okay, never mind. That's just a much darker gray. And that's just white. Okay, never mind. I thought I was onto something there.
The typeface value in the code for entry number 17 was 666. The fun value required to meet Gaster in the Mystery Man room is 66. Gaster's stats in the code are all a variation of multiple 6s. Even in Deltarune, the Gauner Maker typeface value that he uses is 666. The symbolism is clear. Gaster is associated in some way with the devil. People widely know 666 as the number of the beast, which is sort of how it's become known in popular culture. 666 equals Satan. That's basically all you need to know. This has been the widely agreed upon idea. Whether you, like me, are a believer in Gaster ultimately being an antagonistic force who may very well be the final boss of the entire game, or if you're one of those Gaster apologists, even then you can still make the argument that Gaster's association with Lucifer is more so in reference to Lucifer's denial of God's control and his desire for true freedom by becoming like God himself. In this way, Gaster can still be associated with the devil and the number 666 without it being a bad thing. Regardless of which way you believe, he is associated with the devil. But this is where things get kind of weird. See, the reason we know that Gaster is the character speaking in the intro of the game is because the typeface value is 666, and this has a 0% chance of being an accident. The typeface values go in order, so like, Toby himself creates each one. The values start at 0, and so whenever he makes a character, he assigns them a typeface value to, tell the game how their text is supposed to work.
Yeah, makes sense.
This character, the very first one to speak in the game, is already number 666, because it's on purpose. It's Gaster. Which brings us to the Gauner Maker sequence.
Which I really have to wonder, with that specifically, and this isn't like about the theory or anything. Like, this is specifically about like a game development question. But with something like that, you would think that, like a game engine, because I know, like, Deltarune and Undertale, they're made in Game Maker. So you'd think that with each one, like, they'd have an already predetermined, like, list of fonts for, like, characters to use and such. I never assumed that something like that where, like, you literally make your own. Like, I'd assume you'd be able to, like, add more onto the existing list, but I didn't think, literally just make your own list from scratch like that. It's really interesting. Okay.
As all of you probably know, one of the first Deltarune theory arguments was over whether or not there was a second speaker in that intro.
Mm-hmm.
Gaster says, "Your wonderful creation," before the screen changes, the typing style changes, and a new voice says, "Will now be discarded. No one can choose who they are in this world. Your name is," before opening into the game. Many thought this was just Gaster. This was actually what I thought for a very long time, especially considering it just seemed convoluted to have Gaster's plan interrupted, despite him not mentioning anything about it ever, and allowing you to get the trophy for completing the chapter without issue. However, after further deliberation, I've gone back on that theory. See, it doesn't make sense for Gaster to have you set up the vessel, only to then throw it away and send you into Chris. It makes more sense for a second character to have done this. And not only that, but the typer value here for the second speaker is 2. Now, it is again worth mentioning that the typeface value controls the style of text, and so while it's definitely usable for lore, it could also be that the intention was to just change the text style, without the typer value giving away the identity of the speaker. But come on, not only is the type value different, but the style of speaking in Japanese is totally different as well, and way more indicative of a different speaker. So I think it's safe to say there are 2 speakers in the intro.
God, I have to say, like, and I say this as, like, I really miss Half-Bred Chaos's videos. I really hope they make a new video, at some point eventually. But, like, the fact that, like, so much of, like, Deltarune's secrets have been able to be cracked simply because Toby is such a big weeb. Oh, granted, when you put so much care into, like, localization like that, especially when you have, different languages that work so differently than English, like, it definitely does come in handy. It's just wonderful.
Why is this important? Well, then, we could argue that a different typeface value could indicate there being a different speaker, if the situation ever were to arise where 2 different typeface values were used, and we had a difficult time figuring out who exactly was saying what. right? Like, knowing that Gaster's value is 666 and the second character to speak is 2, one could say, okay, well, everybody's got their own. Well, the problem is, in that intro sequence, did you know that Gaster actually uses 2 different typeface values?
What?
In the Gauner Maker sequence, he uses 666, and also sometimes uses 667. The primary difference between these two is the speed in which the text goes by. Okay, obviously these aren't 2 different people, right? 2 different Gasters were not talking to us in the Gauner Maker sequence. That seems silly.
I mean, you never know. It could have been Gaster and Eggman. You know, we don't know what their relationship are. Are they just fragments of the same person? Are they roommates? Or oh, God. This could be so stupid.
It's just Gaster, right? It's obviously just Gaster, and the reason that he used 667 is just to make the text go by faster. Its closeness to 666 should tell us it's obviously Gaster. And we had no reason to argue about this for a very long time. 666 is Gaster's number. 667 has absolutely 0 significance, and its usage in the intro is meant to be an allusion to 666. Boom, hands washed, job here, done. Until now. Let's go back to my original point. The value of the gray color in RGB on Mystery Man's floor was 166, 166, 166. In the Forgotten Man's Island in Chapter 3, you can talk to this NPC, one of the 7 flying aces, although there are notably only 6 of them, that says, "I'm trying to see as far as I can, but it doesn't look too good. Talk about lousy real estate. I sense nothing but evil from that place." The NPC walks away from a pair of binoculars. Looking through the binoculars, you find a gray wall. But I don't actually think this is a wall. It looks more like a floor.
It looks like the grass from the same room that Chris is currently in, only it's gray. Actually, wait a second. Okay, I thought that was going to be a bigger change than it actually was. Come on. I'm honestly trying to get ahead of Spooky Dude here. I want to try to figure out how the color green gets into all this.
Like grass, with these markings being blades of grass that are sticking up. Why is this important? Well, the RGB value of that gray is 167, 167, 167. Yes, this video is Deltarune 67 theory, because obviously I would call it that when it's about this. But what is this video really about? This video is really a deep dive into a topic I've never wanted to dive into because of how complex, massively important, and headache-inducing it is. Is the Eggman, also known as the Forgotten Man, Gaster? And if not, what is their deal? Because there's obviously some connection. Credit must be given to @morecanslil_y for posting this discovery. It's where I first saw it. Credit must also be given to @flowflow_2slow, who linked me to the post after I lost it and struggled with Twitter's terrible search feature for an hour to find it to no avail.
God, yeah, Twitter sucks. I mean, it's always sucked, but you know, it sucks. And honestly, just as in a continuation of the whole thing, it's like, oh, is the Eggman actually Gaster? I've said before, I forget which video, but it was a while ago. But I talked about how I saw this short of a comic dub, where it's done by, well, I think it was by, like, Audiospun was the channel's name? Yeah, Audiospun, that's it. And they're dubbing over this comic where they kind of, like, show the Eggman as being, like, a slightly less corrupted version of Gaster's design. You know, like, black body, white hands, big oval face with just eyes and a mouth without, like, the lines connecting them. And, like, honestly, if something like that came to be, like, I honestly wouldn't be upset.
Basically, like I said, the Mystery Man floor value is 166, 166, 166, and the value of the gray area we see in the binoculars is 167, 167, 167. What's really fascinating about this is that it's proof that there is, at least in this singular instance, a difference between 66 and 67. I said before that typeface value 667 existing could simply be because Toby needed 2 values for Gaster, but could obviously only name 1666, so 667 was the closest option. However, it would have been literally the easiest thing in the entire world to make the colors of this patch of grass 166, 166, 166, and yet he chose not to.
I mean, God, honestly, sorry for, like, interrupting there a bunch, but, one thing that this reminds me of was a comic that I got literally today as of I'm recording this. Let me see if I can pull it up. Yeah, right here, by Mort Bobius on my The Night Is Not a Night character design analysis reaction. They wrote, anytime I see any analysis video like this, all I can think of is Toby, who had never thought of that. The meme. And I mean, in some cases, yes, I'd agree with that. But specifically where you have it like 1 point off, like literally one. Like that unironically is such a small difference that has to be intentional. I mean, like, I know Toby doesn't make most of the sprites in the game and stuff like that. His specialty is, very much music, not art. But you think that it would be simple as, just color dropping, the one from the other, It
chose to make it a different color. Alright, let's talk about this. Thing number 1. No, the Gooner Maker characters, as well as the Gooners in general, do not have a similar RGB code. I checked.
Okay.
Thing number 2. While we've been talking about things like the differences between value 166 and 167, it could actually be slightly more complicated than that. Remember when I told you about hex codes? Not the RGB codes, but the 6-digit code also used to identify numbers? Well, the hex code for the Mystery Man floor, if you choose to use hex code instead of the RGB code, is A6, A6, A6. Similarly, the code for the area we see in the Forgotten Man's binoculars, which is RGB code 167, 167, 167, is hex code A7, A7, A7. So we have to ask, which of these are we meant to be seeing? Are we meant to see it as 166, 166, 166? Or was Toby's intention for us to interpret the hex code instead, making it 666 and 777? There is no current answer to this. The other obvious references to these numbers inside the game must be brought up. On top of 6 being Gaster's number, they were only...
Honestly, I just gotta pause this for a second, because, like, I only just remembered, and honestly, this has nothing to do with the theory at all. But just talking about all these, like, color values and stuff like that, like, the one thing that reminds me of, it became a meme, like, years ago at this point. But there was this one website called Useless Websites where you just had this big button that clicked and it brought you to like a random selection of like useless websites. And one of them that I specifically remember was a website that just had the letters RGB on the screen. And if you hovered your mouse over it, there was just a voice that said RGB. Let me see if I can find that. RGB. RGB. So stupid. Oh god, I'm happy I remembered this. I'm happy now.
Ever 6 chapters of Lord of the Hammer written, with the 7th chapter never being finished. 7 is the number of... Oh, come on, are you kidding me? In Christianity, 7 is the number of wholeness or completeness? I mean, come on, I say I'm taking a Deltarune break, and yet here I am looking up the biblical significance of 6-7. 7 is the number of chapters in the game. It took God 7 days to create the world. There are 7 spirits of God. The number is frequently used in association with God because it's a holy number, a number of wholeness and completeness, in comparison to the number 6, which is widely considered to be a number representing human imperfection, incompleteness, and weakness. It's tied to the creation of humanity on the 6th day, and is therefore tied to the concept of sin. Incompleteness, you say? We know the number 7, representing wholeness, does have ties to Deltarune's story. Like I just explained, it's relating to Gerson's unfinished 7th chapter. Technically speaking, 6 representing incompleteness is represented here as well, as only 6 chapters were written, leaving his story incomplete. But there's another reference to 6 and 7 being incomplete versus complete within Deltarune, the 7 flying aces. One of them says to Chris in the Eggman's Forgotten Island that Chris copied 7 cards to cheat at cards with. However, there are noticeably only 6 in the Forgotten Man's Island. The 7th is seemingly the one that shows up in the Eggman's Chapter 4 room.
Yeah.
Interesting. The number 6 is also obviously associated with the number of the beast. So, what is my point here? I think that Deltarune, in the same way that the real world it's used that way, Deltarune might be using 6 as the number of incompleteness, and 7 as the number of completeness. Oh, by the way, I lied earlier. The number 666 isn't so simple. Yes, you'd be correct in believing that 666 is the number of the beast. However, the original Book of Revelation states that 666 is, I kid you not, the number of man or the number of a man. To quote the Bible directly,
what?
Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man.
Number of a man? Okay, granted, it's been a while since I've read the Bible in basically any, capacity, but which man are they talking about in that instance? I don't know, so I just thought of something else that I could try on RGB. Give me a second here. Okay, never mind. I'm done with the color picker. I suck at this.
And his number is 666. Okay, we're going very fast and hitting this very hard. This is a ton of information. A sort of Jimmy Neutron brain blast. But what in Gaster's name are we actually supposed to do with any of this information? I guess the initial point I'm making here is that Deltarune is not satisfied with showing you Gaster and saying, look, 666 equals scary evil devil guy. I think it goes deeper. I think that Deltarune is doing something symbolically with the numbers 6 and 7. I think part of that is tying them to the idea of being incomplete versus the idea of being complete and whole. I think the Eggman is absolutely tied to Gaster in some way. But how? Well, slowing our roll for a brief second here, let's go back to what that NPC actually says. When talking to the Binoculars NPC, he says, I'm trying to see as far as I can, but it doesn't look too good. Talk about lousy real estate. I sense nothing but evil from that place.
Talk about...
Okay, we can work with this.
What place?
We will realistically never return to Man Country, or at least not this Game Boy version of Man Country. So is Man Country meant to represent a real-world place that Chris has previously been to? I kind of think yes, in the same way that Chapter 4's art therapy segment was meant to represent the art therapy sessions Chris apparently went to. Now, anyone would believe that because the NPC even asks them which one of them was the patient in a way that clearly implies this is based off of a memory of an event. There's nothing really like that, though, in Man Country.
Which, actually thinking about it, if that's the case, do all of the egg segments have something to do with Chris's memory? Because if so, that's really weird.
I do think it's interesting that this entire area features a unique visual style that never, ever comes back. The Game Boy Retro style of visuals and text boxes never comes back outside of the 7th Flying Ace in Art Therapy, who speaks using that retro text box. But besides that, this is entirely unique. I don't really understand the purpose of this. Like, with Art Therapy, it seems to be a one-to-one near recreation of the real deal. Obviously, this painting of a tree probably wasn't on the real-world Art Therapy door, but this building does have a real-world version of it, I'm sure. I find that hard to believe for Man Country, considering the retro aesthetic. So why do I think that Man Country represents a real place? Furthermore, why do I think we could return there? Well, 2 reasons. First, the obvious. We look through binoculars at a place said to be evil. We then move on. In what world is that not an obvious, extremely obvious moment of foreshadowing? That evil place isn't going to never come back up. That's crazy. It's like if we met an NPC named Chekhov who said, hey, check out this gun. That's the equivalent, okay? Second, there is actually an unused version of Man Country that we never got to see. In the files of the game lies an unused version of Man Country. Thicker pillars, a strange pattern that looks like 2 eyes, and what looks like either a statue or a chair or throne of some sort.
What's that made of? I'm trying to figure out, like that almost looks like it's made out of, like, tape cassettes or VHS tapes or something like that. That's weird.
The big structure is made out of that same eye pattern. Wait a minute, a place with structures made out of eyes? Seems similar to the first Dark World. Seems purposeful. Seems like there was some sort of intention behind this design, to the point that I can't accept that this area and Man Country will never come back up. There is actually a third reason. You see, this island, the Forgotten Island, is described as a World Heritage Site. World Heritage Sites are real things, and they are landmarks and areas with cultural, historical, or scientific significance.
Okay, I can totally get behind that. What is Woody doing here? Spooky dude, are you trying to symbolize something? And if you are, I don't like it.
It is said that they contain cultural and natural heritage around the world considered to be of outstanding value to humanity. If that's true, what if the island is based off a real place that is an actual World Heritage Site? A real place in the Deltarune world that is connected to that evil land in the distance. So if that's true, if this is a real place, what is that evil area? Well, we have no idea. This is another impossible question. The question that should be asked is, what relation does this area have to the Eggman? Alright, I'm going to take another pause here to recap. First off, I think that the numbers 6 and 7 have significance beyond just being Gaster and spooky. I think that there is a specific difference between 6 and 7 that the game is trying to highlight. I also think that, whether or not you agree with me that Man Country itself is a real place, at the very least, that evil place that we looked at in the binoculars will come back up. It's not nothing. Alright, here's the thing. I know I've been jumping around a bunch here, but I really think that the question that we need to ask about the Eggman is this. Well, it's questions. What is the relationship between Gaster and the Eggman? What is it the Eggman wants or can provide us? How exactly is the game going to separate the numbers 6 and 7? What is going on with goners? And how can we use that combined information to figure out what this strange evil area is with the hex code A7A7A7? Obviously, we're not going to be able to get that full, concrete answer today, but we can try our hardest. To start, Gaster does not like the Eggman. The trophies that say complete chapter X or Y without issue can only be avoided if you collect the eggs from the Eggman. What is it the Eggman wants? Well, the Eggman, who we really should just be calling the Forgotten Man by this point, wants to help Chris. In the Valentine's letter, which is obviously written by him, he clearly forgets a lot. The Forgotten Man says, "Even if you meet me, I will be forgotten thereafter. You have forgotten me many times before. Sometimes I even forget myself. You may forget me, I may forget myself, but I will remember your kindness." The Eggman's goal is to give Chris eggs, to remind them of something in their past. That's all we really have right now, and that's a pretty lame answer. So what if we approach it from another direction? Rather than asking what the Eggman wants, why don't we consider what the Eggman could theoretically provide? It is very interesting
Eggs!
that the Eggman has a difficult time leaving behind any tangible evidence of his existence. Outside of the eggs themselves, which may just be the point of his entire quest, there is very little about him that seems real. He forgets who he is. The world forgets who he is. Chris forgets who he is. He can't put sentences together properly and seems a bit crazy. But what's interesting is that Gaster, who is seemingly a supporter of following the prophecy, finds fault with him. What could he possibly do? Unless... Interestingly enough, the prophecy references Lancer and Jockington, which always struck me as odd, because that means that their existence was foretold from the very beginning. Jockington had to exist, he had to be born, which is kind of strange to think about. The prophecy knows about all of these people, but it doesn't say anything about the Eggman at all. Is it possible that the prophecy, the all-knowing, all-powerful story that basically controls the world of Deltarune, doesn't actually know about the Eggman? Is it possible that both the regular route and the Snowgrave route end up following the prophecy one way or another, which is why Gaster doesn't necessarily take issue with the Snowgrave route? However, the Eggman is the one thing that the prophecy doesn't account for.
And again, that just it points towards so many questions about what Gaster's connection to the prophecy itself even is. Like, was the prophecy something made by Gaster? Like, was the prophecy like something? Was the prophecy that like was the prophecy something Gaster came across? You know, after he was split up across all time and space and decided, oh, this seems kind of cool. I should experiment with it. Since I now have these, weird extra-dimensional non-existent abilities and can kind of play around with that sort of thing. Is Gaster only, like... I guess if he is, like, antagonistic towards the Eggman, that could be, because, he's not accounted for in the prophecy. But if Gaster made the prophecy and knows about the Eggman, why wouldn't he have, like, accounted for that? Like, it's specifically saying in the prophecy, oh, don't trust the man that gives out eggs, or, something like that.
Because it can't account for it? That's why Gaster is upset when you interact with the Eggman, because it's random, unpredictable. Nobody knows exactly what to do with him. In a way, perhaps the Eggman's existence could throw the entire prophecy off balance. We're bringing his eggs into town and leaving a physical trace behind that he exists. While minor right now, for all we know, this could end up being important later. The eggs we leave behind building up towards a much larger impact on the world than we can expect.
I mean, okay, so thinking about it, where are all the places you leave the eggs later on? So I know the first one I think you leave in Asgore's fridge. The second one you leave in Sans' shop. The next one you give to Temmie. We don't know about the next one, though. Or, wait, was it Temmie? Or there was just a bunch of eggs on a desk next to Temmie, so I'll just assume that give them to Temmie. So... I mean, either way, a lot of that seems to be just giving people more, potentially, food? So, so people are better, or more well-nourished, so they're more hardier, so whatever cataclysm actually does happen, they're better prepared for it? I mean, that's a really flimsy theory, but it's the best I got at the moment.
Perhaps the unknowability of the Forgotten Man eludes even the prophecy itself, with him as a major way to stop whatever is supposed to be coming. But this still doesn't answer the larger question. Why is the evil area associated with the number 67? Look, we need to address the difficulty with answering this question. Here's the deal. In an ideal world, this gray area is RGB code 166.166.166. In that ideal world, there would only be two answers here. The 166 gray area you can see through the binoculars is associated with the Eggman, therefore Eggman is Gaster. Or 166 gray area you can see through the binoculars is not associated with the Eggman, hence why the NPC calls it evil, therefore Eggman is not Gaster. But that's not the world we live in. The area is associated with the number 167, not 166, meaning what exactly? If the area is not associated with the Eggman, hence why the NPCs call it evil, it still isn't a surefire link to Gaster, as it's not 166. It could be referencing someone else. So this is just like a huge can of worms here. This is sort of where we're stuck, and where we've been stuck for a while, where I've been stuck since the release of the chapters. Without any other evidence to tip the scales in any direction, there's no way to know for sure exactly what the deal is. Is Eggman Gaster? Is Eggman not Gaster? Is this gray area Gaster related? Is it not Gaster related? Is it the Eggman related? Is it friend related? Now that I think about it, actually, there is one more connection to be made here, and truthfully I don't have all the evidence for it because I'm sort of coming up with it now as I'm recording this, but there is another frequent usage of the number 7, and it's in luck. In real life, lucky number 7, and, in gambling and all that. And there is one character tied to the idea of luck. Considering the NPC says this area is evil, could it be image friend related? Just throwing that out there.
Of course.
Anyways, it seems like we might—
Is that why Woody was being shown earlier? And also, in all this video, we still haven't talked about how or why Gaster is green, and I'm still honestly waiting for that.
Might be at a dead end. There's really no way to move forward here. Well, no. You see, this week, there's been a discovery. A massive discovery. The type of discovery that's thrown the entire Deltarune community for a loop. Honestly, you're probably thinking Spooky Dude wrote this video to get cheap internet points because of 6-7, as if that was the fire lit under me to make another Deltarune video. That's false. It's this discovery that made me want to write this video in the first place. Gaster is green and in between. Okay, yeah, I know, this video just keeps getting worse.
Yeah, I know.
Before I begin, I'd like to give credit to Twitter user @morganslil_y as their Twitter thread combining all the green Gaster evidence. That's a tongue twister, say that 5 times
Green
fast.
Gaster evidence.
As their Twitter thread combining all the green Gaster evidence has helped tremendously in figuring out what exactly everyone's been talking about for the last few days. There is a pattern in Deltarune and Undertale worth being picked up on. In Sans' house, there are 2 rooms. However, the interiors do not line up with the layout of the house. There is a huge space in between them. Coincidence? Possibly, but between these 2 doors, the one that leads to the room of a red individual and the one that leads to the room of a blue individual, there is a green painting of a bone. A painting where it almost seems like a door should be. In the Undertale Anniversary stream, Gaster's door is one from Sans' house. As if his door was meant to be right there. But it's not. Coincidence, surely.
Oh my god, I just got it. Are you seriously telling me that the whole thing... Oh god, right there. Are you seriously telling me that the whole reason that, people have been saying that Gaster is green is because he would fit in between the red skeleton and the blue skeleton? Okay. I honestly thought there was going to be a lot more digging related to this, but okay. I am honestly invested now. Let's see where this train is on rickety tracks. Let's see where it derails, shall we? And then there were these 3 doors, which I completely forgot about.
In Chapter 3, the ABC rank rooms parallel those in Sans' house. Red for Papyrus, blue for Sans, and in between them, green. And the middle room leads to the gumball machine with the spooky death area. The Chapter 4 Egg Room Hospital has 3 doors. In the middle door is the Egg Tree and the Forgotten Man. In the puzzles in Snowden, you need to switch all the X's to O's. The red O's, the blue X's. But there's another symbol,
green
a green
triangles.
triangle. Why a triangle? And why would it be there if you don't need it? Well, the green triangle could be a stand-in for the symbol delta. What about those 2 snowmen, the Papyrus one and the Sans one? They're in the exact spots that their rooms were in, and there's a very suspicious space in between them. Perhaps it could fit the snowman, who sits in a room very, very similar to the one Mystery Man is in. What does the snowman have you do? How is he meant?
I saw this tweet. I thought it was just a joke. I didn't think people were taking it seriously.
to represent Gaster, you pull pieces from him and take them throughout the world. So maybe Gaster has something to do with being in between things, meant to be there but not. What about the concept of the color green? Well, the start menu in Deltarune, the Gaster menu is green. The green crayon is missing. Spamton's strings are green. The soul is in a green box. It's all lining up. One more thing about the color green. There's a very strange thread Toby Fox once posted on Twitter, but he eventually deleted. I'm going to read it through for you. Luigi takes the fall. From this point forward, Luigi is erased from all games that ever contained him, leaving an eerie voice in his place. Super Mario Brother. Mario and Superstar Saga. Mansion. You turn on what was Luigi's mansion, and it's just an empty house forever. Phone rings. Unknown caller. You pick it up. Heavy breathing interspersed with Super Mario World Yoshi noises. Waluigi, now just known as Wah. Maybe the guy behind the house in Super Mario RPG knows. Captain Lou Albano talks to himself in an empty apartment. Luigi takes the fall? What color is Luigi?
Green.
Why did he delete this thread? Because it's obviously Gaster coded. The whole thread is so Gasterific, it's not even funny. So yeah, while it's just a silly deleted Twitter thread, I wouldn't write it off considering all the other evidence. But Gaster, whether he was or wasn't originally green, doesn't seem so green now. This Twitter thread by Morkanslil_y goes on to speculate that the color gray represents what happens when you try to see too far, which is why that NPC says that the Forgotten Man's Island, that area, that gray area, he says, I'm trying to see as far as I can. Gaster may have been green, but he's been lost. That's why in the green Forgotten Man's Island you can see the gray area, and the NPCs there do not like it, feeling that it's evil. It also makes connections between green and the concept of freedom, stating that green is actually tied to the idea of freedom. And frankly, there's a lot of evidence here, especially because of Gerson's dialogue, the air crackles green with freedom. There is some evidence to suggest that in Deltarune, green and the concept of freedom are somehow tied, but we don't really have enough yet, and it's just more instances. So you can look that up. The aforementioned Twitter thread has all of the examples of green and freedom being linked. I'm not ready to make that conclusion just yet, but I do think that Gaster and the concept of being green and in between things is somehow like a real thing.
Green and in between. Man, why does that seem like... Now I'm thinking about it, this is a joke. Why does it seem like that it'd be the tagline of some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles like show? Like, TMNT, green and in between.
Which leads me to my thought. I don't think that Gaster is the Forgotten Man, as in they're one-to-one the same person. That doesn't make sense considering Gaster does not like the Forgotten Man, and he considers him an issue. It also doesn't make sense with how the NPCs see the gray area as evil. The Forgotten Man doesn't speak like Gaster at all. So what is he? Well, I believe that we've been looking at this all wrong, treating the Forgotten Man, the islands, and Gaster like they're all separate things. In reality, they're much more closely linked than you think. You see, the Mystery Man room in Undertale is in a room in between, just like the Forgotten Man.
Yeah.
All these places we've been to, the egg rooms in chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4, are all on the same plane of existence that Gaster is currently. We've been talking about how crazy Deltarune is going to get when we finally go to the depths or the code or things like that. The deepest layer we're eventually going to enter, wherever Gaster currently is. But I think we've already been there. The rooms in between are where Gaster is. That's what the pattern of being in between things is trying to tell us. Gaster is stuck in between, as is the Forgotten Man.
Man, I wonder if that's the case. I wonder if we'd eventually be able to, like... Wait, I wonder... So, before, the idea that, bringing the eggs out is, like, leaving, like, a tangible, leaving a small, tangible, like, reminder that, the man behind the tree actually existed. The Eggman actually existed. What if that's how you save Des? If, she is actually in the code? Like, you have to bring enough of the in-between into the real world to make, like, a big enough, rift or a path where, like, Chris and Susie and Rousey, or maybe just Chris, could go in and actually get and save Des.
The idea of the Forgotten Man being a fragment of Gaster himself, a different personification, does admittedly make sense. However, the problem here is that there's no real reason to care about that just now. While you could look at the way that the snowman has you taking pieces of him as evidence that the Forgotten Man is Gaster and is having you do the same thing, even if his name is W.D. Gaster, he's not the Gaster we've been talking to this whole time. So no matter what he's called, he is still a different character than Gaster. If anything, the Forgotten Man is a representation of someone from Chris's past. Everyone knows that if you meet the Eggman, you see NPC dialogue in Hometown where a man waves to you from his car, or you see him at the diner. Considering this only shows up with the Eggman, could they be one and the same? Doubtful, as that would imply he has knowledge of the Dark Worlds, which seems a bit crazy. Instead, I think that the Forgotten Man is a darkener version of this individual, perhaps even a goner version, a dark representation of an individual, either a doctor or therapist, that helped Chris overcome their trauma, created by their repressed memories. We know that the existence of the in-between area could have a connection to being in-between in the real world. The remote control was lost in between the couch cushions, and who is it that can send you to the land in between in Chapter 3? The remote control. Perhaps Chris's memory of some helpful man in their past is buried with their trauma in their mind, to that land in between. Their own memories. Now the bigger question. Okay, Spooky Dude, I believe you. Gaster's Mystery Man rooms, the Goners, the Forgotten Man and all his rooms, they're not separate concepts at all. They're all the same thing, residents of the realm in between. But what's up with this gray area being 6'7" rather than 6'6"? Wasn't that the first question that launched this whole video?
Yeah, it kind of
well, I
was.
have two thoughts here. Technically, this doesn't 1000% need to be someone other than Gaster. We've already established that the typer value is sometimes 667 in the intro, meaning there isn't a hard absolute rule that Gaster must be related to the number 6 and only the number 6. This floor being 167 could be that way just because. Alternatively, you could accept that what we said earlier is correct. Deltarune is using the numbers 6 and 7 as representations of ideas, with 6 being imperfect, sinful, or otherwise evil or bad, and 7 being whole, together, or complete. This lines up with 99% of information we have thus far. The Lord of the Hammer ended with Chapter 6. Chapter 7 was never written, which would have completed the story. All that stuff we spoke about before. Perhaps this patch of grass is related to the number 7 because Gaster is most whole here? This is Gaster's actual domain? Something along those lines? Why does this...
But if that was the case, why would the little, the aces call it evil? Unless they were just unfamiliar with what the whole was and just assumed it was evil because it was different.
NPC call it evil, then? Well, I could answer this, but if you know my previous videos, you probably know what I'd like to say here. Alternatively, it could be because this patch of grass is related to Image Friend, who's also in this middle plane of existence and is evil. So yeah, I think that that area that's associated with 6-7, the 167 patch of grass, it's not exactly linked to Gaster, and it's not exactly linked to the Mystery Man. While it probably, if it's for anybody, is more likely linked to Gaster, it's going to be linked to him in a way we don't exactly expect just yet. Like, if Gaster does have a whole form, a fully functional body in some way, even if he's not all one piece. The biggest piece of him, I guess, could be in that area, and that's why it's 167, because he is complete there, in comparison to 166, where he just saw, he was just a weird ghostly blob. So that's that. To summarize what was essentially a whirlwind nonsense video, even though I feel like all these topics are important and there's so much to discuss, that was very informative. If it wasn't for this video, I don't think I would have heard, any of the whole, the actual reasoning why Gaster was green, or, the connections to it. I probably would have just gone with it being, a weird meme that the fandom was currently going through. But the fact that there's, actual reason and logic behind it is just fascinating. Okay, this is one where I really want to hear you guys' thoughts. I know you're thinking, what even was that? I get it. But Gaster being associated with the color green, which is maybe associated with the concept of freedom, and also being associated with being in between things, his links to the Eggman, while not exactly linked to the Forgotten Man himself, I personally think what it's saying is that, our glimpses at the Forgotten Man have been a glimpse at something deeper that is tied to Gaster. That is our glimpse at the darker worlds, the deeper worlds, the land in between. It's all one thing, and that's where everything is. That's where Des is. That's why I haven't been able to explain that strange Gumball Machine segment, because it's just so strange. And
it is very definitely very weird.
How does one interpret that? What if that is another area that's the land in between, where it's more, more Omori, like abstract area? And that's going to continue throughout the rest of the game, and when we finally do get to that ending segment where we meet Gaster, or we go to the land in between, that is the they're all going to be abstract areas like that. Weird segments that don't exactly make sense as a world, but like Game Boy segment, hospital segment, gumball machine segment, that kind of thing.
I mean, honestly, that could make a lot of sense. I mean, I did kind of point out before, and other people have pointed out too, that at this point, we have no idea what future bosses the game will even have. Because, like, we always assumed, like, before chapters 3 and 4, that the Knight or the Titans were going to be, you know, big, bad, final, big evils that we'd have to fight. But no, we fought the Knight in chapter 3, and we fought a Titan and defeated it in chapter 4. So, like, where do you go from there? Like, what bigger evil would you have to fight in the Dark Worlds unless future bosses didn't actually take place in Dark Worlds, per se? Maybe they take place in between, who knows? Like, who's to say that in chapter 5, you know, something very wrong happens, you know, when they're trying to close up the fountain, and then, you know, Chris, Susie, and Rousey are sucked off somewhere in between, and they have to find their way out.
I also think this because of one last line by Gerson that I want to bring up. One last thing to tie this all together, and the reason I think we're going back to that 167 area, and the reason I think that Gaster is here as well. Gerson specifically says that we should go between the lines. It's darker.
Between the lines.
So to summarize, Deltarune differentiates this patch of grass from the floor around Mystery Man by using the value 167 rather than 166. This led our investigation into the identity of the Forgotten Man, what the difference in significance is between the numbers 6 and 7. 6 being the symbol of incompleteness, with 7 being the symbol of perfection and wholeness. The significance of this all is that Gaster is actually related to the color green and being in between things. We can combine this information to conclude that Gaster, the depths, deeper dark worlds, whatever you want to call it, the Gauners, and the Forgotten Man aren't separate concepts, but are instead all part of the same idea, being stuck in between. They're all stuck in the realm in between, whatever you want to call that. There's a high chance that the area the NPC looked at in the Forgotten Island, and called Evil, is a Gaster-related area that we will return to in the future. Oh my goodness, this has been quite the video. I'm worried that some people are going to see this and think it's ridiculous, because, I mean, I know, look at that thumbnail. I'm not going to put it back up, it's disturbing, but...
I mean, admittedly, it is a very well-made thumbnail at the very least. Like, I will, like, while I've gotten good at making my thumbnails, I'm not going to go out and anyway say that my thumbnails are perfect. I mean, I'm a reaction channel, for crying out loud. But just go, when I first saw the thumbnail and saw the title, I honestly was a little turned off, and that's why I didn't initially watch it until it was suggested in my Discord, and other people said that the video was actually pretty good.
I get it. It's a pretty crazy concept, and it's a pretty crazy video to even suggest making. But I do think that there's a lot... This is the roughest theory I think I've ever put out in terms of, like, concreteness, and I don't typically like doing that, because it's weird, right? Oh, you know, Gaster's kind of associated with green, maybe, so therefore let's come to conclusions. I'm not the fan of doing that, typically. I don't like doing that. But I do think there's something to be said here about all of this. The color green, the being in between, the 6-7. It's something, right? It's something, and that's why I really do want to hear you guys' opinions on this. What do you think? Like, what do you think is the difference between the 167 grass and the 166 grass? Why is there that differentiation? What is the Gaster's role in the whole land in between? Do you agree with me that all of this stuff is the land in between, an almost abstract Omori-like dark area where it's not so...
It certainly is abstract, I'll give them that.
It's just going to be strange segments one after another. Do you guys disagree with me and think that I've gone off the crazy end and this is too stupid? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. My name is Spooky. Thank you for watching. Let's see if we can get to 6,000-7,000 subscribers from this video. And I'll see you next time.
Honestly, very weird. Very, very weird. I really have to wonder. Because, like, I'd imagine, you know, until the green thing came up, you know, Spooky Dude said he had, like, that first section of the video kind of, well, he kind of been running to a dead end for the longest time before, you know, until the whole green thing was brought up. But I really have to wonder, like, how much of the title was because of, you know, it's relevant and how much was just, you know, to try to get on the trend of the meme. Which, I mean, at the same time, I mean, you know, YouTube is a game and, you know, you gotta try to play it. Green Gaster, 6-7. Honestly, there are, like, you know how, like, the whole thing with, like, theorizing in Deltarune is that it's all just, we have so many strings. We have so many strings we can pull from to try to, like, weave some kind of theory until, you know, we get more concrete evidence through, you know, official game content. But honestly, it's like at this point in Deltarune, we don't have just, like, a few threads. It's like when you have, like, you know, those like really old weird houses from the 60s where they have like shag carpeting going, like, where it goes up on the walls. They have like carpeting wallpaper and stuff like that, so the walls are fuzzy or the ceiling is fuzzy or stuff like that. Like, honestly, at that point, that's basically what Deltarune is at this point. Like, it's nothing but loose ends that we're just waiting for, like, somebody, well, not somebody, we're waiting for Toby to come along and actually finish weaving them so we can see what's actually happening. Yeah, but so, yeah, that's definitely it for now. So, yeah, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.